The airport terminal froze. A trained K9, a German shepherd named Max, let out a deep, rumbling growl and lunged at a lone suitcase tucked against a wall. Seconds later, officers unzipped it, and what they found inside. It brought seasoned professionals to tears. No one saw it coming. A routine day had unraveled into a heart-wrenching discovery that would captivate the world. Officer Margaret, everyone called her Maggie Thompson, had worked with Max for 7 years. With his striking black and tan coat and those intense amber eyes, Max was a cornerstone of the K9 unit. Sharp, disciplined, fiercely loyal. He'd sniffed out everything from narcotics to explosives. His focus unbreakable. That morning, Maggie and Max were patrolling the baggage claim at a bustling international airport. They moved through the crowd with practiced ease. Max's ears swiveled, his nose low, as travelers cast fond glances his way. Some snapped photos, others smiled, maybe thinking of their own dogs waiting at home. Then, without warning, Max froze. His muscular frame went rigid, ears pinned forward, eyes locked on a plain grey suitcase near the escalators. Maggie knew that signal. It was Max's alert, one she trusted without question. But before she could act, Max lunged, his sharp bark echoing through the terminal. His paws scraped the polished floor as he pawed at the suitcase, his intensity stopping the crowd in their tracks. Maggie's pulse quickened. This wasn't Max's usual alert. There was something raw, almost desperate in his demeanor. She radioed for backup, her voice calm but taut. She began clearing the area. Travelers stepped back, some curious, others uneasy. As murmurs spread, phones came out capturing the scene. Maggie kept Max in check, but his eyes stayed glued to the suitcase. He whined softly, a rare sound from him, pressing his nose to the zipper, as if begging it to open. Within minutes, airport security and officers swarmed in, cordoning off the area. The bomb squad was called, standard for unclaimed luggage, but Maggie felt it in her bones. This wasn't a bomb. Max had faced threats before, but this wasn't aggression. It was anguish. He paced, tail low, his whimpers mingling with sharp barks. Whatever was inside, Max knew it was wrong. 2 officers in protective gear approached the suitcase cautiously. "Opening it now," one said, his voice steady but tense. Maggie nodded, gripping Max's collar as the zipper rasped open. The terminal went silent, save for the faint buzz of distant chatter. Max sat abruptly, his gaze fixed, tail giving a slow, hopeful wag. The officers lifted the flap, and their faces fell. One let out a choked gasp. Inside, curled into a tight ball, was a tiny puppy, barely a few weeks old. Its matted fur clung to its skeletal frame, ribs stark against its trembling body. Soaked in filth, it had been stuffed into the suitcase. No food, no water, no air. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by stunned silence. One officer knelt, hands trembling as he gently lifted the fragile puppy, cradling it like a child. It whimpered faintly, eyes barely open. Maggie stood rooted, her years of training no match for the sight. Max nudged closer, his nose brushing the officer's arm, letting out a low, sorrowful whine. He hadn't just detected a scent, he'd sensed suffering, a life clinging to hope. "Who could do this?" an officer muttered, his voice thick with disbelief. The suitcase had no tags, no clues, just the evidence of unthinkable cruelty. Maggie's chest tightened. Max had saved lives before, but this felt different, personal. The puppy was rushed to a vet, and the terminal hummed with quiet outrage as security tightened their perimeter. Travelers were ushered away, but the image of that tiny, broken creature, it lingered. Maggie took charge, her resolve hardening, despite the lump in her throat. Max's instincts had uncovered something. Beyond his training, driven by a heart she'd always known he had. Security footage became their lifeline. Hours of recordings were scoured, every face, every movement analyzed. The suspect emerged in grainy clarity, a wiry man in his late 40s, nervously dragging the suitcase through check-in. He avoided eye contact, left the bag, and slipped into the crowd. No name, no words exchanged. But Maggie wasn't letting him escape. Cross-referencing footage with taxi records led to a name, a man with a history of animal cruelty and smuggling. This wasn't his first crime, but Max had ensured it would be his last. "Let's get him," Maggie said, her voice firm. Max's tail flicked, as if he understood. The team descended on a dilapidated apartment complex at the city's edge. Max led the way, nose to the ground, ears alert. The air was heavy, oppressive. No one answered the door. But Max's soft growl at the threshold was enough. With a swift breach, the team entered, the stench hitting them like a wall. Decay, neglect, despair. The suspect tried to flee through a back window, but he was pinned before he could escape. Inside, the scene was worse than Maggie feared. Cages stacked high, filled with whimpering puppies, kittens, even exotic birds, all trapped in squalor. Some clung to life, others were too far gone. Maggie's eyes stung as Max moved from cage to cage, lingering longest at the frailest animals, his gentle nudges a stark contrast to his powerful frame. This wasn't just one suitcase. It was a cruel, calculated operation. The puppy from the airport, now under veterinary care, had been destined for an overseas buyer, doomed to die in transit. Max's instincts had stopped a tragedy and exposed a larger horror. As news of Max's discovery spread, it struck a deep chord. Headlines blazed across the USA and UK. Hero German Shepherd Max uncovers animal cruelty ring. Airport puppy rescue exposes smuggling operation. For those 65 and older, many who cherish their pets as family, the story hit home. Social media overflowed with grief, anger, and gratitude for Max. The suspect, investigators revealed, had been trafficking animals for years, profiting off their suffering. Dozens had perished in transit before, but Max's actions saved countless more. Back at the station, Maggie knelt beside Max, stroking his fur. "You did good, boy," she whispered. He leaned into her, his amber eyes steady, as if ready to do it all again. For a generation that valued loyalty and compassion, Max wasn't just a dog, he was a hero, a reminder that even in a world capable of such cruelty, one soul could change everything.